Yeah, let me introduce who we've got here today. So, Patrick Nunes is from Rotary International. We've Istvan Lengel from Be Lazy, which I call Belazy, but I don't know. Patricia Palladini from CA Technologies, and your moderator for today's session is Maria de Riba from Vista Tech. So we'll have questions through the session, but we'll also indicate when there's question time. We're going to have a kind of break in the middle so you can do that leg stretch or say hi to your neighbor and stuff like that. But we want this to be as interactive as possible. So you will see some polls as we go along. And the instruction is quite simple. Go to slido.com on your phone, hopefully you have one, slido.com, and the hashtag you need is number symbol VTGALA19.
All capital.
That way you can interact, you can give us your thoughts on the poll, and we'll show you the results. So there'll be a few questions coming. So without further ado, Maria, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thanks everybody for joining us here this morning. Straight after the keynote, so no pressure, you know. Large shoes to fill. So as Dave said, we're going to be running a few polls on slido.com. Make sure that you log in, you put in the hashtag, and you give us your opinion. We want this to be a conversation. This is a panel discussion, so discussion means we discuss. Obviously, questions are absolutely fine at any stage throughout the conversation. And yeah, just maybe, even though the panel, as in the panelists, doesn't really need an introduction, I'm pretty sure most of you or all of you know these three veterans in the industry. Patrick, obviously, as Dave said, leads the global communications and design team at Rotary, and Istvan is an entrepreneur and technology veteran, guru of, as I like to call him. And then obviously Patricia leads the globalization team at CA in Barcelona, as well as many other hats with women in localization and lecturing and everything else. So I guess the first thing that I'd like to put to our panel is, when you think of AI, and we've kind of got the gist, and we got a really good way of setting the scene with the keynote. But when you think of AI, what's the first emotion that comes to mind, or what emotions sparks? Maybe Patricia, you're right beside me. Would you like to start?
Okay, when I think on AI, I basically think on speed, performance, agile, connectivity. But I also think on untrustworthy.
Okay.
What's wrong?
Untrustworthy. Okay.
And it's a difficult word to say in English, but basically, what am I missing? Why are somebody taking decisions on my behalf? Okay. So my heart is broken right now between the two options.
Very good, very good. And Patrick, maybe over on the other side.
For me, I'm excited and curious. Those are the two things that come to mind, and also skeptical.
Right.
But also inspired.
Awesome. A lot of mixed feelings in there.
Sure.
Istvan, what?
I like to dream big, so for me it's about understanding the human nature. So I think in the long run, that's where we can get to a better understanding of why we are doing the things we are doing. And I'm particularly interested in robots. I'm a sci-fi buff. And for example, if you look at Hanson Robotics is one company that has inspired me a lot. And I think I'm going to draw some examples from this as well today.
Awesome, that's brilliant. Well, personally, I'm in awe of what I see, what I hear every day. And I just think there's a huge opportunity. I may not have it all figured out in my head, but I think there's just definitely huge opportunity. So maybe, Dave, we'll pull the results and see what is kind of the first word that comes to mind for our audience when they think of AI.
Just bear with me 2 seconds, guys.
It needs to think.
So we're seeing speed, robots enhanced.
Yeah, you can maybe click on show results just up there, and we should be okay. Maybe not. there's technology for us. Okay.
A lot of robots, machine.
Automation. Unknown is a very interesting word in here, because we're all talking about it, but I mean, I'm not really sure what we're talking about. So I kind of share that feeling. We have efficiency. Okay, somebody used the BS word, so interesting, an interesting point of view as well, certainly speed, efficiency, etc. So a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of opportunity, and some skepticism, which is brilliant. So if I guess just to set the scene with you guys, Alison spoke about how GALA is about sharing experiences, about being generous with our knowledge, our experiences, just in general, being curious, kind of, and the one thing that I wanted to understand about this session is that this is not a masterclass, okay? We're not experts, we're just like all of you, we're trying to figure this out. We have observations, we have our own experiences, we have obviously, done our homework in terms of looking into different things. But, this is a discussion, as I said at the beginning, so your points of view are just as valid as what the panel might have in terms of their opinion or my own. So just to kind of break the ice a little bit, we're going to take a look at a fun video. I'm pretty sure most of you know this video and have seen it already, but it still has me in tears every time. So let's have a laugh.
What's the buttons?
Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in this lift. I heard about this.
Voice recognition technology in a lift in Scotland. You ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11. 11. 11. 11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
Whose idea was this? You need to try an American accent.
11. 11. That sounds Irish, not American.
Doesn't it?
11. Where in America is that? Dublin?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Try an English accent, right? 11. 11.
You for the same part of England as Dick Van Dyke?
Listen, you're then smart ass.
Please speak slowly and clearly.
Smart ass. 11.
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
11. If you don't understand the lingo, away back home to your own country.
Ooh, is that talk now, is it? Way back to your own country?
Oh, don't start, Mr. Bleeding Heart. How can you be racist to a lift?
Please speak slowly and clearly.
11. 11. 11. 11.
You're just saying it the same way.
You're going to keep saying it until I understand Scottish, alright? 11. 11. 11. 11.
I'll just take his head out of your cow.
This is a voice-activated elevator. Please state which floor you would like to go to in a clear and calm manner.
Calm. Where's that coming from? Why is it telling people to be calm?
Because they knew they'd be selling this to Scottish people who'd be going out for nuts at it.
You have not selected a floor.
We have 11.
If you would like to get out of the elevator without selecting a floor, simply say, "Open the doors, please."
Please. Suck my wally.
What did you just say, please?
I'm not begging that for nothing.
Open the doors, please.
Please. Pathetic.
Please remain calm.
What you up tonight? Get him out now. Hey, just wait for him to speak.
You have not selected a floor.
You little cow! You don't answer these doors! I'm going to come to America, I'm going to find whatever desperate actress gave you a voice, and I'm going to go to an electric chair for you!
Scotland, you bastard!
Scotland! Scotland!
that has woken everybody up a little bit and has given you a laugh, guys. I guess it's, maybe an exaggeration of some experiences, frustrating to certain degrees that we might all have, with AI at different levels. And also the importance and the complexities of being truly local when we're talking about AI and everything else. And by the way, I don't know if there's any Scottish person in the room. It's, I think it's actually brilliant. So, that's kind of to set the scene a little bit in terms of how AI has become very much part of our daily lives, and in some industries it's actually been around for a long, long time. If you look at the slide, and apologies if somebody can't really see it fully, like AI in our industry has only really kind of kicked in around the 2010s, give or take, whereas in some other industries it's been around for quite some time. And actually there is a poll on Slido just to ask you guys, when do you think the term AI was first coined? But I guess what that shows is that our industry has also gone through a number of revolutions, evolutions, or maybe just natural progression, whatever we might call it, with the only difference really is that like cat tools or MT were very much specific to our industry, whereas AI is now much larger than just our industry, okay? So perhaps we'll just see what you guys have thought, or when the first, or when the term AI was first coined, just in terms of the results. See how you're doing, okay? 79%, good, looking good, okay? But, anything is valid depending, what we think about. So what about you guys? I mean, do you agree with that year? Maybe Istvan, is that kind of...
Yeah, I had to look it up, obviously. I didn't know when this was coined.
Good boy.
But in a way, interestingly, the first mentions of robots come actually from the Egyptian mythology. And then after that, just to pay tribute to Bavaria, E.T.A. Hoffmann has written quite a lot of things about things that they called automatons.
Right.
And besides this also, in the 18th century, there was a fraud, which was a chess playing machine. And it's interesting that even today, one of the main uses for artificial intelligence is chess. This was actually done by a guy called Farkasov Kempelen.
Wow, say that again?
Kempelen was the name. And he was traveling all over Europe with this. And it turned out that there was actually a chess player hidden in the machine in the end.
Right.
But people were taken for a fool there. But interestingly, it's all about mathematical reasoning. And there has been, in the 1950s, for example, in 1958, Lisp was created. And one of the goals for this very early programming language was to support artificial intelligence, which was already coined by then for 3 years. So it's been there in history, and I think that it has always fascinated people's imaginations.
Absolutely, excellent. Yeah, no, I read something about even Greek mythology. There was, some sort of a mention of potentially a being or an entity.
Yeah, and just one thing. I don't know how many of you know Eliza, which was
Anybody? Yeah, a few hands. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. Okay, it was written in the 1960s, and it's a program that is emulating a psychologist. And it's basically just asking back. It's not really artificial intelligence, but it's an application of natural language processing. And it's also fascinating if you want to try it out.
Awesome. Okay, Eliza, everybody. So that's one to check out. What about you, Patricia?
Well, I also Googled it about when did artificial intelligence started, and I cannot add anything on top of it. But my personal first connection, first connection of his reaction to artificial intelligence was when I watched a movie called 201: Space Odyssey. I'm sure you all know that movie. When the astronaut is trying to get into the Odyssey, and basically the robot says, "No, I'm not going to let you in because I have decided not to let you in." At that time, when I first watched that movie, I couldn't understand anything because I could not understand why a robot is not allowing somebody to do what they want to do. And this is an example in a way has stuck in my mind. And now when I see Alexas and Google Pods and all, all this, I keep on thinking about that. So, and I guess that's why also I'm kind of skeptical on artificial intelligence. What happens if they become too much intelligent? How can we do it to make sure that they are not that intelligent, or
Absolutely.
So this is for me my reaction at that point. On
Very good.
Artificial intelligence.
Excellent. What about you, Patrick?
Yeah, I think one of the, 1955 it was coined, and there were, I think, just two problems of coining it, artificial intelligence, was, two problems with that. One is what's artificial and what's intelligence, right? It's ironic because we refer to it, but anybody can define artificial in many ways, or intelligence. Are animals intelligent? What's artificial? Is it because it's not human? So it's very tricky that we use it widely. If you think about it in terms of what it is, it's basically information being processed, right? And the deep data started around 10 years ago. It's very recent. But yeah, as my colleagues have mentioned, it's been around for a while in many iterations, but it's all about how you define it. What is AI anyway?
And that's actually a very good point. Like, what is it? What is AI anyway? So maybe if you if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's, again, I see it as processing information. So you might think our sprinklers, artificial intelligence, right? It's reacting to a timer that says you have to now water my garden. Is that artificial intelligence?
Very interesting.
It's based, I think, on how you define it. I think this concept of artificial intelligence, as we portray sometimes in fiction of a robot making the decision, I don't think it exists yet, and I don't think it ever will, because everything that's related to AI is responding to information or data that's already there.
Right.
A human can see an unforeseen situation and react in many different ways. I think the machines are reacting to information that human provided. So I think it's romantic to think about it. That's why I'm curious.
Yeah.
That's why I'm excited about it. But it depends on how you frame that.
Yeah. Would you agree with that, Patricia?
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to a movie comparison, for me, artificial intelligence is that thing that reads the matrix.
All right.
So that film, like 20 years ago already, somebody was reading the matrix, reading the data, and taking the decisions on your behalf. So again, the data is extremely powerful, and reading the data is the power. So who manages that? Who owns the data? Who decides how to read the data? For me, that's artificial intelligence, and we need to learn that so we can use it. So we can use it instead of being run by the data and the artificial
Very good.
intelligence.
Nathan, do you have an opinion on?
Yes, I don't believe in AI.
What? No, sorry. What?
So I do believe in some things that relate to the processing of data, but for the time being, I don't think that AI exists. I mean, it's like I've seen a tweet which was very nice, that machine learning is written in Python and artificial intelligence is written in PowerPoint.
All right. Okay. That's very good. Interesting concept, yeah.
and like based on this, what I find is that there have been like clever ways of analyzing data, and there is machine learning. So this is not a doubted thing, which was arising mainly from statistics, which is something that I studied for a while, being an economist. So it's kind of like I can relate to that, but I was really unimpressed when I learned actually that this robot that I really love, Sophia, which has like really human-like features and character, that it's just a simple decision tree that it's following in its conversations.
Okay.
So there is no cleverness there. There is a lot of intelligence in the way that it moves the muscles, in the way that it detects the faces, that it turns to you. So what I'm seeing is that there has been, there is machine learning, and on the top of that, what they added is like they decorated it with like speech processing, which is a machine learning application, face recognition, and some other like neural network technologies. And there are some intelligent things out there. What I was reading is, for example, that Deepmind, which is a company that was bought by Google, that's creating the best artificial intelligence. But what it does is that it's resolving like very specific challenges that have like a fixed set of variables that can be addressed. So for example, it's solving games, chess, Go, and then StarCraft 2 now, that's the next thing, and they are working on that. And there's also like, based on speech technologies, there are things like, for example, Google created with Dialogflow, they created a way to automatically make an appointment. Well, I'm sorry, but for me, it's not artificial intelligence to make an appointment with my hairdresser.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. So for the uninitiated, and I know that one of the words that came up at the beginning was unknown, like maybe if we could help the audience understand what is the AI, what isn't, especially in the context of our industry, because I mean AI is very broad. It may or may not exist, as such. We won't get into that debate. But yeah, just maybe to kind of, because people sometimes think automation, but is automation machine learning? Is it not? So I don't know. Maybe Isvan, do you have any kind of tips on how to make the difference or how to understand a bit better?
I think that one interesting part with intelligence, and this I refer to Patrick, is basically there is associations. And even a human is like, am I more intelligent because I know a lot of things in history? Probably I'm not. But I can relate to basically any year. And you say what happened in France, I would say what happened in Russia, whatever. And this is what people consider to be intelligent. So it's basically associations and free associations. And I think that the part that is missing in the artificial part is like how you go from one conclusion to another with the support of scarce data, which is something that with people it's empathy. It's kind of like, I accept what you say, I trust you. And is this something that is encoded in the computers or not? But this is a question. The other thing here that I find to be very important is to consider that whether for this session we are going to consider machine translation, which is a highly advanced area, to be artificial intelligence or no. I think that we can always ask a question, like they say that neural machine translation is artificial intelligence, but isn't it like the same as statistical but a bit better networked? Is that also artificial intelligence? So I think that we need to consider this and just decide whether in this panel we are going to talk about artificial intelligence, including or not including machine translation.
Yeah, and I think, it's probably the one use that, we all know most of, or have been most exposed to, and I know there's going to be different separate talks throughout the next couple of days on that, but perhaps, especially when we look at the role of translators, etc., later on in the session, we can include it just to kind of have a full roundup of what, if that's okay with you guys. Sure. Yeah. Excellent, very good. So from your experience, like any particular differences in terms of machine learning or automation, like where does one start and end, or any examples, even from CA or your internationalization?
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with what Isvan just mentioned. When we are, when we talk about artificial intelligence, we get scared of what's going to happen, but it's not that artificial is not that intelligent. It's, you have to write a good algorithm, and, instead of spending 20 years learning things, you just put everything there and the machine will do all the correlations. So
and should we add yet there when you're saying it's not that intelligent?
Yeah.
Should we say yet? I'm just kind of asking that there, Perhaps not. Nobody knows, right?
Yeah, nobody knows, but I don't think we're going to be run by robots in the future, because we will still be more intelligent, or at least we will empathetic, and we will, we will have all these points that robots cannot have. Okay. So I like the reflection saying that, it's at the end of the day, it's not intelligent. Okay. It's something
artificial. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Patrick?
No, basically it's the same thing. It's all about the data. Data is the field, and you go from there.
We have to know, how to take advantage of that.
Right.
Okay, so it's data. Data is the word.
Also assumptions.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we do is that we are relating emotionally, which computers don't. For example, can I teach the computer that disintermediation in the industry is bad for the LSPs? And please don't do that. I think that this is also something that the computer would easily do that, probably, based on data and evidence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have all the options, like the right, clever, ideal options that computer gives you, so you can take the right decision based on other factors that computer cannot take into account.
I like that.
Relationships.
I like that. So actually, it's a tool that empowers us to do other things and to go further. Actually, I'm going to get Dave, he's very kindly, because the clicker wouldn't work for us. So he's my clicker, my remote clicker. Just kind of a quick overview. Obviously, neural machine translation we've spoken about, but there's just a few other kind of use cases of AI in localization. Probably the ones in bold are kind of more, kind of, I guess, widely spread already. And there's one at the very end that I think, even during our discussions as a panel, we felt hasn't really been touched on, and it's desktop publishing. Like, it's a huge part of our industry, you know, the design side, and I don't think there's anything out there, right? We couldn't really come up with anything. So maybe one to add, kind of, you know, for our researchers and all of those people who are in the know, to kind of start looking into that as well. Very good. So I think, I mean, we could talk all day about what are the differences, what is and isn't, and that's kind of not so much the focus of our presentation or our discussion today. We asked you on Slido whether you felt that AI was good or bad for our industries. So hopefully Dave can
just to remind people, we're using Slido, so you can go slido.com, SLIDO, and the hashtag you need is V, Victoria, T, Tango, GALA 19. So hashtag V, T, GALA 19, if you're not in there. And also, for anyone who arrived just now, please check in to this session on the GALA app, and we'll ask a few more questions through Slido. Meanwhile, let me pull up the results.
And while Dave is pulling that, guys, show of hands, as in, you know, just raise your hand if you want to add, if you want to, like, I cannot see absolutely everybody, and I apologize, I feel terrible for turning my back on you guys. But Dave, you know, and I know we have Jane somewhere as well. He's at the back of the room. If anybody wants to interject at any stage or, you know, share experience or ask a question, do so. Very good. Okay, well, that's great. That's an amazing start. As in, you know, it's good. I'd actually love to...
So just for anyone who can't see that very well, the question is, in your opinion, is AI good or bad for our industry? And 95% are saying...
We shouldn't have let the bots vote.
Right.
Yeah. Can I, if that's okay, anybody who answered bad, would that, you know, those few people maybe... You know, just not raise their hand. If anybody wants to elaborate on why they feel it's bad, if not, it's totally fine. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. But okay, no, right, perfect, no problem. Very good. So the other question that we asked you was, where does your organization stand today in terms of AI adoption, plans, and everything else? And Dave is going to open up slide.
Yeah, we just opened that, so we give them...
Okay. So if we go to the next slide, we're just going to very quickly look at the different kind of, it's like a basic axis, right? So we feel that companies and organizations and teams and everything else, they're somewhere in one of those quadrants, and it could be anywhere and everywhere. So either they're super enthusiastic about it, they love the idea, and they're implementing it. They have, like, you know, the resources, the people, the finance, the kind of, you know, just everything. They want to be pioneers. They kind of want to get out there. It's a bit like the technology adoption curve, you know, it's kind of the early starters, early adopters, I should say, etc. Then there's the people who love it, but either they don't really know where to start, or they don't have the human resources, the people resources, the money, basically, or it might not even be their job. Like they expect maybe one of their providers, be it an LSP or a technology provider, like many of us are here, to kind of bring some solutions up or some suggestions, or, you know, like perhaps, I don't know, I'm just thinking even Patricia's case, you know, it might not be the globalization team directly who's looking into AI, but it might be like the technology team or whatever. And then there's, you know, the skepticals, and skepticism, I think, is very, very healthy, because it just makes us think more about, you know, what we want to achieve and whether this is going to serve the purpose. It's the skepticals, but who are still going to implement it because they know it's a necessary evil. It's part of the reality of our lives, not only in terms of localization, but just in general. And they have the resources and everything else, so that's great. And then there's the skepticals who are not going to implement it yet for many reasons. Perhaps because they don't want to kind of, tiptoe in the water until somebody else has done it. They want somebody else to kind of test and fail or test and learn, or they don't have the resources. And then I'm sure there's a few, perhaps business owners out there or organizations who don't feel that AI is for them at all. So, and I think when we saw the why, that maybe a few of those responses come from those people, they either are in a niche sort of service or a niche organization where AI just, perhaps they feel that it wouldn't add anything to it. And obviously there are risks potentially to that. It's like being taken over, missing on opportunities, perhaps even kind of going out of business eventually. But, it's also a valid approach and a valid decision to say, well, actually, you know what, it's not really for us. So I'm just wondering, Dave, if we have a few answers and we can see where most of
Yes, we do.
our
Let me pull it up.
audience- Okay, so you can close it. Yeah, next up, you can close it and see the results, or even see the results, yeah. Okay. Nobody responded, yeah, there's 24 responses, and should be telling us where people are.
So let's just read this one. So AI is really helping us today, right?
Yeah.
Some people are saying, it's just...
There we go.
It's good to have techies in the room. And friends.
Yeah, we've had a bit of a problem.
There we go.
Thank you, man.
There we go. Okay. So, enthusiastic. So, those who are enthusiastic and are implementing or will implement short term. So, okay, 70%. That seems to be really good. I know we had a couple of other options. Dave, if we could just go next at the top right. Yeah, perfect. Okay, enthusiastic but can't or won't implement for the 7%. I think, a lot of people are in that space, in that quadrant. And there's 3 more, if that's okay, Dave. Yeah, so skeptical, but either they're implementing already or they will implement short term. So it's kind of 50-50, people know there's it's a necessary evil, it's there, and they have the resources. And then the skepticals that won't implement yet and want to wait, and that's perfectly okay, because as we've just said, nobody really knows what shape it's going to take yet and how the roles are going to change, right? Because the minute we start adopting this, our roles are going to change, and they've started changing, actually. So. And the last one, okay, well, there's nobody who's skeptical and won't implement, so it seems like, pretty much everybody is on board and is willing to be curious about it and to try it out. So thanks, guys, for taking part in the poll. So any
some
thoughts?
Examples would be
Sorry?
very interesting. Maybe some examples from people would be
Yeah, actually, yes.
interesting.
Anybody would?
Just raise your hand and I'll come find you.
Yeah, because I'm very curious to get from you, what does it mean for you to implement AI? What does it mean implementing AI, apart from go to neural machine translation?
Yeah. Excellent.
How do you do that?
On my way. Your name and question.
Christina is my name. So if by implementing AI we mean implementing actually machine translation, that's what we're doing at the moment. So I'm from electronic arts, and we're planning to implement machine translation now next week for about 24 projects already. We've been working a lot actually to train the engine and everything to make sure that quality is good. And yeah, it's not easy because of course we work with vendors, so it's hard to work with them and actually make sure that they accept that and they don't just say, no, I'm not going to work with you anymore. Also because we have a special relationship with them. It's not just like, I don't know, numbers working there, but it's people, and we want to make sure that they keep on working on specific projects. So yeah, but I mean...
Without disclosing details,
Yeah.
but have you found much resistance?
Some, yes,
Okay.
but actually, thanks to the fact that we have worked a lot to make sure that quality is good enough to start, it would be fine, I guess.
Okay, very good.
I hope.
So implementing AI means implementing machine translation.
For me,
the
yes,
company
at the
or-
moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely in Electronic Arts, I'm sure that there has been a lot of AI implemented in
Yeah.
Other areas.
in the games.
Right.
Yeah,
Did they
yeah,
help
yeah.
it anyway? Like, could those people who were responsible for this kind of like the movement of the characters and the likes, did they help you in the
Not
language?
for machine translation, no,
It's
no.
very different.
Yeah, it's very different. But yeah, of course, there is a lot of AI going on that, like testing, especially, for example, a lot of like,
Yeah.
fake players, to test functionalities of the game. So for me, AI is machine translation, but for EA is a lot more, of course.
And where do you find most resistance?
From vendors saying, depending on the projects, because of course, depending on the kind of game, the text is more creative or not. So for those games for which the text is very creative, I understand that it's hard for them to accept that because they're not that free anymore. Because even if, you say, I'm going to disregard machine translation and translate from scratch, first of all, you will be paid less, and so you don't want to do that. And also, you're going to be biased a little bit from the machine translation results that is there, so
Right.
it's going to take more time for you to actually come up with something funny. If you think about The Sims, I don't know if any of you has played it, but it's really creative, so for that, we are not going to implement it, for example, now, because it doesn't make sense.
So when is your session?
Exactly, yeah, promote it, yeah.
You can promote it, I think.
This afternoon.
It's right here as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so after lunch, everybody. Excellent. So in terms of your
Christina.
owner, oh, sorry,
I think
sorry.
we've one other.
Yeah, sure, of course. Right.
I think I saw someone over here.
I couldn't see the hands from. I should have stand.
My helper.
Too small.
Hi, I'm Joseph.
Hey, Joseph.
I'll actually as well talk about it today later, but I'll just mention it. I implemented AI in my sales team for identifying the proper leads, for identifying which customers should we stick to, how do we identify more opportunities with these existing customers, and so on. There was a lot of resistance from the company owner, from salespeople to actually implement it. But today everyone's very happy, and I'll be happy to share with you more details later.
That's great.
I like the approach with resistance.
Excellent. So, guys, we're going to take 5 minutes. Dave, if you want to introduce the break, or I can introduce it. Just sorry, did we have another question?
We'll take one more before the break.
Yeah, if there is one. Sorry.
No one's brave enough.
No, that's
right.
perfect. So we're just, we're kind of 40 minutes in, so we want to breathe a little bit and just do a little bit of ludism. Is that what the keynote speaker mentioned? So put down the phones, stand up.
Everyone stand up.
Yeah, come on, stand up. We need to kind of re-energize the brain a little bit.
Say hi to your neighbor.
Yeah. Hello, my darling.
We have to make sure that move away from AI and machine translation. That's
And maybe, we'll just do a few stretches.
You just call it.
Yeah.
You want the videos on? Or are you still content?
Well, I was going to ask them for their own experiences in their companies, okay? But you can activate the next slide.
I turned the next one on.
Okay, perfect.
So did you make the last question?
No, because Dave said let's take a break. It's 1:45, so we'll come back to it. We'll just come back to it. Yeah, we will come back to it after break. So, guys, I'm not joking. Just seriously, like stretch a little bit. It's been a long 40 minutes. Enjoy.
1, 2. 10 seconds. Finish that conversation. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, let's go.
1.
Thank you.
So we're going to analyze the data, how many people left.
We're not.
It's okay.
A lot.
So let's start again. Patrick, you're back in the room. Yep.
Just continue.
Oh my God, stop. You're embarrassing me, mommy.
Okay, let's get going, guys. Hello.
Guys, you can continue the conversation over lunch.
So, next question is going to be about... Oh, that kind of worked.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the break. Welcome back. Finish that conversation later. Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, an interesting one. Back to you, Maria.
I think just obviously, I mean, we've heard from you guys. I was just curious to see where our panelists stand today in terms of their own organizations in that quadrant. Like, where do you guys sit, if anywhere? Maybe you're out in outer space already. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I can relate to Christina because we're also on the client side. And for us, for not too long ago, I would say we were under a rock, basically. We're not under a rock anymore, but I think where we are today, it's in our early stages, involves a lot of what I think a lot of people miss when it comes to technology or AI. I think a lot of people get excited about so many shiny objects on the shelf, like, oh, I'm going to pick up this one because it's going to solve my problem. But we're spending a lot of time now identifying what problems are we trying to solve, because there's everything out there. And when in our relationship with vendors, or as we progress into our relationship with vendors, we are looking into driving that because, not because we're control freaks, maybe a little bit, but I think because it's about solving our problems, right? Because anybody can offer many things, and they're all great things, but many times I think people jump the wagon and pick something, and they think it might solve one problem, but it's not the real problem they want to solve. So right now, that's where we are. We're really doing a lot of reflection and analysis and studying what are the problems we need to solve, taking into consideration the human aspect. We come from a humanitarian organization where our slogan for our brand is people of action. So people is important. It's the most important thing. So that's where we stand.
Excellent, very good. So it would be in the enthusiastic, but maybe not implementing yet. You're
Early stages of
Very good.
implementation,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent, very good. Okay, what about you guys?
Okay, for me, I work at CA Technologies. We have been recently acquired by Broadcom, so I'm in that moment trying to explain what globalization is. So I have the impression we have gone like one step backward, in the sense like 5 years ago we did create a platform through an innovation project inside the company where we created automated workflows to manage translators and to manage quality. So 5 years ago we were very advanced on that. Right now, again, because this is more, it's starting again from scratch. We are in the middle of this discussion, but we have implemented neural machine translation, which for me is not artificial intelligence. This is just one application of machine translation, one step forward, but I don't want to call it artificial intelligence. And we are in the process of starting to understand how to implement, first of all, what does artificial intelligence mean for my company? What can we implement in-house? What do we want the vendor to implement for us? What technology are we supposed to use? What does it mean implementing artificial intelligence? Do I have to change my tools? Do I have to change my processes? Maybe I can customize the processes. Can I plug in an artificial intelligence algorithm somewhere? We are trying to understand all this.
And as part of that planning, guys, I guess you're also considering what roles you're going to need, right? And what those roles are going to look like, right?
What do I need? Do I need to start hiring data science? Data and data analysts?
Very good.
That's very interesting.
Absolutely. What about you, Isvan? Your latest adventure?
Yeah, the thing is that I'm in a special situation because I just started a new company.
Right.
And there is no data. I mean, we have 0 customer for the time being because it hasn't released. We don't even have a website yet. So it's coming in June. But interestingly, I mean, as we were like thinking and conceptualizing everything, we were trying to be future-proof. And the whole technology is just about like taking different vendor portals and all those jobs that are being offered through this, aggregate that into a single system. And this opens up a lot of possibilities later because we are going to have a lot of information, a lot of data about people. And we are thinking, for example, along the lines of like trying to assess or trying to predict translator availability and these kind of things by looking into how they are working for the different customers that they have.
Okay.
And I think that this, like there's a lot of possibility later. But for the time being, what we need to do is keep an open mind. And what we also did is that we have chosen a platform, it's actually Microsoft Azure, nothing extreme, that would enable us to implement these kind of things fast and prototype a lot of things fast.
Very
So
good.
that's where we are right now.
Excellent. It sounds really interesting. So everybody stay tuned for the Be Lazy website coming out in June. So and everything, and everything that they have to offer. So I think, do we have another Slido or? Oh, no, oh, sorry. No, let's go old school this time. Let's go old school. Show of hands, if that's okay. Who thinks that the traditional roles in localization won't exist? Probably, you know, in the next 12 months or next couple of years, like they will exist. They will not exist at all. Does anybody think that they will not exist at all, as we know them today?
Question for you, Maria.
Yeah,
You mean the traditional roles?
yeah. I mean, a
maybe other roles.
translator, the translator, and a project manager. You know, like as we know them, they won't exist. Or do you think that they will exist, but with a kind of different focus? A slightly different, yeah. So the roles are going to be slightly different. So we will still have project managers, just they won't be kind of, you know, sending files in and out and all of those things, right? Okay, very good. And I guess if there are, and I'm sure there are LSP owners in the room, does anybody feel that some of their staff might lose their jobs? Or, you know, is there any sort of sense of fear out there? Either for one's own job or, you know, if you're an owner, that you might have to like let people go and hire new people. Okay, that's good. Good, very good. That means there's obviously a willingness to have people evolve into their new roles, right? And kind of retrain and recycle and everything else. Very good. So guys, what are your thoughts on that in terms of kind of reshaping the roles and kind of what the roles might look like? I don't know, it's fun. You were last talking, so we'll go with you again.
Okay, I was, like 1 month ago, I was at the Elia Together conference in Barcelona, and I did a presentation on new technologies, like how to understand that for translators mostly and project managers. And I started the presentation with a poll, like a raise of hands for how afraid are you of you losing your job?
Right.
And I was asking this first from the translators, then from the project managers, and finally from the company owners.
Right.
And I was really shocked because translators and company owners were afraid of losing their job. Project managers were the least afraid of losing their job. That's like, you better start worrying people now. Because I think that that's the most prone for like a big revolution there.
Okay, so according to you, project managers should watch out.
They can't do much, really. I think that project managers should start working with their bosses, like very much hand in hand. Because what I think today is that a lot of whether this is going to be a successful transformation in a certain company is going to depend, I think, on the top level decision makers.
Right.
Because what I think is that the top level decision makers need to change their mindset to become much more open in the way they approach every problem in the company and not stick with the old methods of like, it's always better what we do by hand.
Right.
And I think that it's also like very important these days for the managers to get IT knowledge, because it's just coming and it's getting simpler. The problem is that like it was there 10 years ago as well, but you needed specialists for that. But today I think that there are a lot of managers who can handle like the right amount of Python or whatever to do some prototyping, some quick testing.
Okay.
And those companies are more likely to grow fast, where there is like not only an executive support, but an executive understanding of what can be done. Because I think that the owners are the ones that are knowing their business the best and their goals the best.
Okay.
And I think that also what's interesting is that if AI gets implemented in PM, then these kind of exception or error handling issues, which today you have a lot of like automated rules, but they are not able to handle all the exceptions of the peculiarities of the individual customers. And I think that this error handling is going to decrease, which actually will mean less human overhead.
Yeah.
which I think is an interesting
Okay.
proposition.
Very interesting, very good. Okay, is in your experience? Sorry, sure.
1 sec.
We'll just, yeah.
Name and question.
Yes, hi, this is Antonius from UK LSP, Planet Languages. You mentioned that this error handling will be reduced, and you mentioned it with some certainty. Can you qualify that? Can you explain that a little bit more? So,
Like the reasons why I think this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically you are reproducing certain human decisions. And the project manager is taking a lot of decisions on how to assign a project or how to do it so that it fits the customer's needs. And this is something that today you can only do with, I mean, in most cases, you can only do with rules which are strict, like 100% of the time, if this, then that. Whereas sometimes it's fuzzy. I think that project managers don't necessarily, like they are making decisions, but their decisions are not necessarily always like this is the only right decision to take. But something that takes you to delivery. And what decision you take, sometimes one is more productive, sometimes one is less productive. And if you've got like the algorithms to replicate this kind of behavior that was earlier done by the project manager, I think that's how you get to the like decreased error handling. Because then obviously most of these decisions are going to be more human-like.
It's a little bit like the concept of management by exception. Yeah. So everything should work fine. You only have to be there in case there is something wrong. But the plane should be flying on like an autopilot mode in a way.
I think the main reason for my question is that in my experience in the real world, the exception is the rule. So. You know, when you deal with real clients, the understanding of a start of a project and a finish of a project, and the entire duration, the entirety of this project is fuzzy. So the start of the project and the way it's defined might change several times during the course, and this is where the project manager can make a real difference, where they take the headache out of the client's mind. And
yeah.
Maybe what you can do here is start educating the customer, because that's for me, and going back to what you mentioned about project managers, the project manager role, in my opinion, will change, and it's going to be more a customer educator, a customer advisor. So if you shift left, if you manage to get out, to standardize whatever it means in each particular case, then the execution can be managed in a more efficient way. And going back again to how the roles will evolve, in my opinion, the winner here is going to be the translators. Right. Because we are in a way disintermediating. And going back to my point that I don't think machine translation or neural machine translation is intelligent enough, the reason is because we still need a translator to do the post-editing to a certain level, depending on the scope, expectation, etc. But that's going to be the intelligent part, the really intelligent part. That's what we need to have. So we're gonna, in my opinion, we're gonna see the role of the project manager that is gonna evolve, not disappear, but evolve to a more an advisor for the customer, to more an advisor for the translators. The role of the translator, in my opinion, is gonna grow, is gonna show up, because they're gonna be more and more, important. And everything that you can automate or you can manage with certain logic, although there will be exceptions, of course, that's going to be more automated and more grown by algorithms which belong to artificial intelligence.
Okay, so you're more or less saying project managers, watch out, and you're saying translators, your whole world is going to be turned upside down. And what do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things that AI, however you define it, will never achieve is creativity. And to me, I come from a world where content is gold. Right? We're constantly bombarded by content. I think that's where the human comes in, because humans are creative, and the role of the translator, whoever is dealing with content, I think needs to evolve. Everybody needs to adapt. To the project manager side, I also think that it will change. It will evolve. We basically, where we are today as an organization, we operate in a different way in our team. We don't have project managers. Right? We give freedom to whoever is dealing with the content to manage their workload and all that. We have a hybrid model of in-house and external resources. And so I could say project managers will not exist because they don't exist in my world. And we're just fine. It's about the people and empowering them to reach gold when it comes to content. And that's something that it's getting worse and worse. Worse and worse, to find that, to break through the noise, and the human is the only, element, resource who can do that.
Yeah, excellent, very good. So obviously, like we're seeing the implementation, sorry, yeah, go ahead. We'll get the microphone.
Hi, Johan from Folio in Cape Town, South Africa. I think one of the important things, I was part of the discussion, quite a hefty, very emotional discussion, of people in our industry who would be extremely afraid and who are extremely afraid, is previously the backbone of every company getting paid, the accounts department. The people that are getting your money, sending out invoices, doing your financial statements, and I think in that part, those people are extremely afraid of machines and AI, because you have a TMS system that can send invoices, it can follow up payments, you can set it automatically, it can create financial statements, it's automatically tax compliant, and so on. So for those people, they are extremely afraid of neural MT, and for an owner like me, you see someone, I think many accounts departments have been in the company for 20 years. So it's just a comment that someone needs to just look at as well, and how can you address that? Will there be a changing in roles for those people, or eventually will they just be phased out?
And what do you think? I mean, obviously, you've mentioned it's kind of a reality for you, right? At the moment, so have you started thinking about how they could add value to the organization in a different way?
Well, I mean, in my company, technically, with the system we do, technically, yes, we're already not really needing them. It's checking on what the machine does is probably the important function for us. But eventually, if your machine is learning how you want it to work, eventually you don't need someone to check on it. So in our business, relationships are very important. Emotions are, the people are what's running the business. And you mentioned content, creativity. So I think we should try and, I don't know, create a different way of doing things that wouldn't phase those people out.
And hasn't it always been the case, though, right? There's always that one thing that comes that, and I think in history, right, if you think the great technologies that have come in the world, I think they've come to change how we humans evolve, right? We talk about the evolution, but it's the evolution of the species of human, right? When you think of, fire changed how people digest food, right? If you think of writing, some will say writing was actually bad for us because we didn't have to use our memories as much, because we just write it down. So I think that has always been the case. And when we talk, even though in that quadrant of implementing, some experts or gurus of AI will say we are in the era of implementation constantly. And I agree with you that people are key. Like for us, it's really important. And I actually believe in constantly challenging the status quo of the human side, because humans drive everything around us. And if humans are not challenging their own status quo and evolving, then there is a risk, yes. But it's up to us. We have that decision power, right? We can make that decision to evolve with it, or sit down and wait and say, well, what about me?
And I've seen in my company, for example, a situation where we have not evolved with the technology, or we have not implemented new technology because we have to save the team.
Right.
That's not the right way. I'm not saying that we need to let all the team go or half of the team go. We need to change the role. We need to evolve to something and not just stick to what we have because this is the safest thing or the less risky. So, we don't have any, like a solution, obviously, but it's just a matter of evolving with the
And how do we, but how can everybody around the room in their organizations, in their roles, how do they go about that managing that change, getting by, creating those roles and kind of bringing everybody along and kind of convincing them, for want of a better word, that this is actually a great opportunity. And I mean, you guys have gone through an amazing transformation the last couple of years, and I think that's going to continue. So how have you done it? Secret sauce.
Yeah, and we approached it again from what the problems we're trying to solve. And we went from an approach of being service providers, basically, of language in our department to being part of the conversation in terms of global content. What does that mean? And it was the conversation we had with a team of, at that time, 20, 30 people. And I learned a lot about change management, doing it every day for 2.5 years, doing it, and we're still continuing in that process. And I think you have to, people again come people comes first. And of course you have to have serious conversations of what does it mean? Are they going to be impacted? And we chose the route of involving them and being extremely transparent. And I know Isfan has slightly different opinions sometimes when it comes to being transparent, but we chose that route of being completely transparent with them and getting their buy-in. And by doing so, we had an idea. We had a heat map, for example. We think some people are not going to make it. We knew that, but we didn't want to make that decision for them. We gave them the journey. This is the vision. Everybody has a chance to go with us, and a few of them left on their own. Which made it easier for me, of course, a little selfish of me, but I didn't have to make that decision for them.
Right.
They made their realization they just wanted to be in their traditional role, just translating their hearts out, which is great. We still need those. But it didn't fit with the vision that we had for our organization, where we wanted to take content and communications forward.
Okay. Very good. Transparency, then, it's really kind of the key. Right?
Wow. Maria, we just have a couple of comments. Is it still on point?
Hi guys, I'm Kirill from Content Quo. I wanted to do a bit of a contrarian perspective here for a second, specifically to Patrick, who was saying that machines will never be creative, okay? So I'll give you two examples. They're outside of the field of translation, but number one is what we call the natural language generation, okay? So machines today actually can write text, and take a look at a startup called Quill, which is basically doing marketing copy with AI. So they produce the source text for you. And the other one's in music. There is a startup called JukeDeck that actually writes music for you using AI. So like, if that stuff is not creative, I don't know what is. So maybe the definition of creativity is what we'll need to consider if we want to be like fairly looking at the progress of technology.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is that the machine won't do that without the human inputting the data for it to do it.
There you go.
So the machine is not going to create this machine and say, now machine, be creative and do this for me. The human comes before that, right? The machine just didn't start doing it on its own. There's data behind it that a human, which takes into consideration creativity and emotions, but a machine by itself cannot assess that without you telling or inputting the data for it to do so.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by that.
Like, what came to mind for me was the keynote speaker was speaking about the human capacity to imagine things that are not created yet. Machines can't do that. Machines just process in many different ways all the data that they have, and boom, they come up with something new, unique, but in reality, it's just stuff that we as humans have fed them. So I think, there's no right or wrong here.
Right.
They're creative to a certain extent, certainly because they create something that is unique. But the process, how they create it, is not the same creative process that humans go through. I think, would that be, I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, but it's a very good point, by the way. Definitely very good point.
We have more points over here, so maybe we'll take that and come back.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's getting exciting here. So.
Veronica Skaya, Language Wire. So hopefully I'm still on point. Going back to what Isvan was saying about the project managers, that got me thinking a little bit. And what I read recently is like a competency lasts only 2 years today. So when you think about that, I think it's our duty as business owners to invest in our people, because the brain is so powerful, right? And help them develop competencies and see where it fits. If back to the project manager, if your business is only transactional and a small project, of course it can be automated. Right. What's the value of the project manager? But if your customers are large enterprises, yes, they need the automation bit, but they need the power of your brain to find solutions. So that really got me thinking that, yes, there's always a different path, but investment in the people is really crucial.
Yeah, and for us, when we did that change, that was one of the three things we looked at. Like, we looked at people, of course, look at the processes, and the main decision we had to get us where we needed to get was to invest. It was professional development for people, because you can have the brightest idea in the world. If you don't have the people with you, you're nothing. You don't go anywhere.
Yeah, and this is what we mean by evolving the roles.
Yeah.
That you automate what you can automate, but people should be doing more creative things. So they are not going to disappear, that's for sure. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there are any other comments.
We have two more, so
Sure.
we'll take two and bring it back to you.
Perfect. We like that. This is what discussions are about.
Hi, my name is Yuka, and I just wanted to comment about creativity. I agree with Krill, because I read about marketing automation or AI usage. In Japan, there's a study about marketing copy creation, and AI is winning because they do beyond the imagination copy. And human can't decide which one is done by AI when a good copy is there. So creation can be done by AI for me. And about not yet there comment back in the first session, I think singularity is going to come. You say, no, singularity is not going to come, but I think there will be the moment that AI is going to go beyond human intelligence.
Okay. Well, we should check in a couple of years and see how things are going, for definite.
I do have one comment, and we're talking about implementing AI and what's going to happen, but we are not talking about how to do that. Well, you know, we've seen the areas where we can implement AI, but I see a very field of analysis and business, which is the tools, how the technology can implement AI, how can make AI a reality, how a TMS can bring in AI, how project management tools, how quality, how QA, how can we implement AI in the QA? Are going to we implement AI in the QA phase or in the development phase? That's also an area on, where we, in order to implement AI, we need to understand where can we do it, and somebody has to do it.
Exactly, and then train the people and get the right people doing the right thing. So if that's okay, we'll perhaps move on. I know I'm just very conscious of the time, and I know it's our lunch break, so I'm sure nobody minds staying in for 5 minutes, but I don't want you to starve and collapse here. It's clear that the roles are changing. We asked you guys on the Slido, if your company was already implementing AI, and how, if it's already implementing AI. Perhaps we might just take a look at the actual roles. I mean, the four kind of key roles in the localization industry, as we see the more traditional roles, and see how people fulfilling those roles actually feel about it, where they are today, and maybe what our panel thinks, how if they're implementing or not implementing anything specifically in these roles, and more importantly, if those of you who said yes to, you're already implementing AI to a certain extent, it'd be great to hear your experience, because everybody can learn from that and can pick up ideas and bring home kind of a few takeaways and a few things to look into. So we'll take a look at the project manager role, if that's okay.
Hi everybody, my name is Stefania Latella, and I work as a localization project manager for Visitech. I've been working for this industry since 2008, and I could see a certain amount of improvements in the technology and in the creation of sophisticated tools that assist and support the localization team. I have to admit that I have not yet experienced the effects of artificial intelligence in my role, in my everyday work, and I would be curious to see how it is going to affect my job. My idea is that in the next 12 months, in my role, artificial intelligence will take over some of the more repetitive tasks, like assigning resources, sending end-of emails, and creating quotes and PO. So most of the tasks will be automated. And in the next 5 years, I can see that my role will be more customer-oriented. I think PMs will be closer to the customer and to the final users, so we will have more time to dedicate to our customers, working together to identify the best approach and the best workflow for their requests. So I hope and I think that PM's role will be more strategic than it is now.
Okay, more strategic. Patricia, I know that you mentioned you guys have been looking at implementing some sort of PM allocation and everything else. And you also said one of your final comments there was that project managers will become more customer oriented. So I don't know if, like, does that resonate with your feeling in terms of where the project management roles are heading and what's going to happen?
No, it does, and I promise I have not seen the video before.
All right.
But yes, it does. It does. I think there is an opportunity for education on the customer.
Right.
I am a buyer, and I'm doing education already in my team. So it's really, you know, we do the things, sometimes we do the things in a certain way because we don't know other ways of doing things, but there may be other opportunities and other strategies that can be implemented, and the knowledge resides on the vendors, and that's where, you know, your added value is to educate the customers and to show them ways of doing things in a different way.
So to Veronique's point is invest in the people, retrain your people, you know, and then obviously
invest in the customer.
Exactly, invest in the customer by educating, re-educating, and showing them what the future might look like. It's when you said project managers. They were out.
No, as a matter of fact, I like the point of Veronique, because what I think is there is one competency that is not changing. That's the competency of learning.
Yeah.
And I think that as soon as you've got people who are not ready to learn, you should better get rid of them. And what I think is that like today, there's a lot of talk about PM automation, like lights out project management. For example, XTRF has been talking about this for a long time. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of project managers being completely reluctant to automate even just email sending, which is not AI, it's just very simple automation. What I think is that then better pick up the call, have a conversation, because it's not the personal communication that you want from project managers. Like, can you take this job? Very interesting email. The other thing is that, I mean, if AI is able to write marketing texts and everything, it's perfectly able to write also emails to the vendors, which can be personalized in a way. It's also able to receive, for example, customer communication. Like, let's say the customer forgot to attach the file, the customer forgot to specify the sub-language, these kind of things. I mean, these are the things that definitely have to come, I think. Also, like the continuous localization part, it needs to apply some AI, because there are mistakes being made there.
Excellent. Very good, very good. Just actually a very good Common Sense Advisory released a paper last year, and it was kind of, you know, how the technology is going to affect the role of project managers. And I'd say most of you have seen this already, but it was like, you know, back then the PM was the pilot, they were kind of masters. Now they're more kind of the air traffic controllers, or well, even 2018, they were more the air traffic controllers, so they were monitoring and making sure everything was on track. And kind of the prediction, and you know, we know that Common Sense are good for their word. Is that the project managers will more about kind of setting the route or the route, if you're American, and kind of, you know, put the autopilot on and let it run and just kind of manage by exception. I think that was something that Patricia introduced. So I think that's, you know, perhaps, you know, this is what project managers are going to be looking like from a project management perspective only, and they'll become more like customer, I suppose, kind of customer service and more about customer success experts. So yeah, that's kind of what project managers might look like. I don't know if anybody has any comments from their own experience. Has anybody implemented anything in terms of AI on project management? Kirill, you wanted to say something? Very good. Okay. No? Yeah? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Thanks, Dave. You're getting loads of exercise today, Dave.
You'll buy your beer.
Stand up, name and question.
Hi, I'm Anya from Lengu. We are a technology-based startup, so from the beginning we didn't understand ourselves as an agency, and we have automated a lot of project management. I am actually head of operations, so I oversee that. And what we do, for example, is we have automated how new projects are matched with translators, and there's an AI in the background that analyzes what is this document similar to. And then it finds the translators that have worked on similar text in the past. And that's a bit of a black box for us because it's like really not clear what the similarities are sometimes, but it works quite well. So the whole interaction with linguists is minimized at that stage. Of course, there's all the other project management stuff where you need to answer questions and make sure like people are actually delivering what they should be delivering, and that's a bigger challenge. But that works quite well for us, but we have had that focus since the beginning. So it's not so much of an evolution, but it's been there from the start.
So it's like a system that looks at, pairs the translator, the languages, the areas of expertise, maybe their quality track record on previous projects similar.
Yes,
and all
exactly.
that, and just says, boom, this person should be this person.
Exactly, but then it also looks at the actual content of the text to be translated, because sometimes just putting it into a domain does not tell you enough. That's a start, but it's not always enough.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Yeah, any comments, anybody? Anything else with their experiences? Oh, Alessandra, if that's okay. The other
You're
end
way
of the
over
room.
there. Okay. Yes, you can.
I was just wondering, we were talking about using, shifting kind of the focus of the PM more towards education of the client, which I think is, totally on point. I just wonder about the other side. Like we just talked about automating a lot of the PM tasks for assigning linguists and stuff. Is there a risk of alienating the linguists and translators?
I think as long as you have a conversation with them like every month or so, you won't. That's my experience. If the boss doesn't speak to the employee for a week, does the employee get alienated?
Yeah, I think that's where this when you cannot forget about those basic, right, the soft skills that we have, and in any type of change, I agree. If you might have them, no technology at all, but if you don't have those conversations, if you don't have those soft skills, that's why we have good and bad bosses in the world, or good and bad leaders, because of that. And I think it's the same.
And I think there is also room for educating the translators on the technology, but also on the subject they are translating. I'm sure that some jobs are done to the best to their knowledge by the translator, but they don't really have enough background or enough information, because there's no time for that. So it's not. I'm not blaming anybody. So maybe that means that we can get translators more educated on the specific subject, and we can assign them to continuous jobs on that particular area. So I think it's going to make their life easier in a way.
Yeah, like it might, personally from an LSP perspective, it will eliminate some of the kind of transactional things, but it won't replace the relationship building. So the partnership between an LSP and the actual translators and the linguists, that's not going to be replaced by AI. If anything, it's going to allow project managers and like vendor management or supply chain management to have a closer relationship with them, because their time won't be taken up with the transactional kind of, filing and out. Can you take it? Can you not? Or whatever.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's really not about from the buyer side. Many times already, the human interaction, when it's not there, we hate it, right? It already exists. We had experiences with different LSPs that were completely disconnected, technology or not. That they were not focusing on what matters. So regardless of the technology, if you don't have the right approach and the right mindset or business, intelligence and emotional intelligence to carry that through, technology is just there to support you. But it's about your business model and what matters for you as an LSP and as a customer, relationship.
And going back very quickly to the model of educating the translators, if we can invest more time with artificial intelligence on providing feedback on the quality and report errors, not from a punishment point of view, but from an education point of view, that will be mostly appreciated by translators. They know what they are doing right or wrong.
So I'm conscious of the time, guys, but I know that there was a comment.
We have one
here.
comment,
Yeah,
and
perfect.
we have a
There's
question
another
at the
one
back of the room,
And
which I'll
there's
go
another
to.
one.
How will we
down
wrap it
there.
up on a good note?
Sorry?
How will we wrap it up in a good note?
Yeah.
We've got like
I mean,
half an
is
hour.
everybody okay if we run over like into our lunch break for 5 minutes? Do you want to finish the conversation? I mean, if anybody wants to leave, by all means, but I think, I mean, because it's lunch break, I know that we have to stick to our time for definite, but.
We have very funny videos coming on.
Okay, let's take a comment here,
Yeah,
and
let's
then
do that,
question
yeah.
back there.
Kirill here again, playing the devil's advocate role again. So talking about using AI for vendor assignment. And we all know, and Patrick, you said that AI is trained on data which has been created by humans. And human beings are unfortunately biased, which comes out to the AI being biased as well. The very real danger in this is because we don't know how AI makes decisions, and Anya from Lango was talking exactly about that. We actually might be discriminating against certain translators in our pool if we use AI. So this is the caution I want to make here. So with all the best intentions we have in optimizing the supply chain process, how do we make sure that we're actually fair with our translators and we don't let the AI discriminate against them?
Yeah, and I just bring it back to, don't we do that already as human beings?
Can we do less of that?
Right, but that's the thing.
By
So it's-
eliminating AI.
And that's my point.
Going back to rules that are dictated by the boss.
Right.
I think we're
it's the
going to have
people.
to continue a ton of these conversations over lunch, you know, we
Yeah.
should just grab a few tables
Yeah.
and continue. But I know, Dave, you have another one at the
Yeah,
back.
Olga wanted to.
Yeah, we have a question here.
sorry.
I have someone over there, so we'll do those two. And just, if you are leaving, please sign into the session and give feedback before you leave, okay?
Hi, my name's Sonia Bernath, and I'm from Deluxe Media. And the question I had, we've talked about educating translators, and we've talked about educating project managers, and what really struck me is when Istvan talked about managers educating themselves in IT. And I just wanted to ask you what would be a starting point that you would suggest for management where they could get hands-on education, experience, understanding of new technology?
I can also tell you what I've done.
Okay.
So the thing is that, and I started like a couple of courses. There are free courses on the internet. And I started a couple, but actually I failed twice because I didn't have a peer. And I think it's very important to, if you want to learn programming and you're busy anyways, then get a peer with whom you are actually able to check each other, get creative, and level up. So I think any course is good, but try to have someone that is controlling you.
Yeah, so learning with a buddy,
Yeah.
basically. Very good. Olga?
Hi. Those who know me know that this topic fascinates me. You know, the evolution of human talent in the era of artificial intelligence, and I've spoken about this myself. But one of the comments that I wanted to make is in recent times I have taken the time and I've had the opportunity to talk to translators and post-editors, as in, you know, what do you think? I mean, people that are actually in favor of using technology in order to augment, you know, their skills. And one of the things that struck me is something that we don't talk about very often, which is the motivation. And how emotional intelligence and motivation, you know, play on productivity. Because we keep on obsessing about measuring the productivity and what's the productivity averaging at, and, you know, are they able to translate more words per hour and all these things. And then, I mean, I was asking them, you know, what would make you more productive? And they said, well, I mean, I'm pretty fast already, but I mean, what would make me more productive is a little bit of variety and maybe somebody taking the trouble asking me, you know, what I enjoy doing most. I mean, and then I realized that some people, I mean, in this very carefully crafted kind of disintermediation to find out what they can be good at, I mean, sometimes what we find is that what motivates them is something different. That if you actually give them something that they really care about, that they really like and that they enjoy doing, they can be even more productive, they can be faster. And I think that this is one of the things that we kind of don't pay too much attention to, and I think that we should, because everything counts, right? I mean, also when you see the dropout rate, or, you know, people that are actually saying, well, you go to a career day at a university and they say, I don't see myself doing the same thing, you know, every day. I mean, you know, ask a 22-year-old if they want to do something repetitive. You know, you don't need surveys. You don't need SurveyMonkey. You know, you already know they're going to say, no, I don't want routine. So, I mean, this is just like food for thought for all of us, because I mean, I don't have the perfect answer to this. I mean, I'm gonna, you know, try to basically stimulate, you know, the translators of the companies that I work with. I mean, to see, you know, if we can, you know, improve that way. But I think, you know, I'll leave you with that thought, and we can go for lunch.
Thank you, Olga. And I think we're going to wrap up in 2 minutes. We were, you know, kind of talking among ourselves what sort of a start guide or something we could kind of give you guys, and certainly bringing people on and bringing the emotional intelligence aspect element is absolutely fundamental. I know there's going to be, Yuka is going to present on emotional intelligence for leaders as well tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So we all look forward to that, and I think there's a transforming panel track as well on the modern leaders. So it's all very, very relevant. You know, like we need to like understand, bring the emotional intelligence aspect of it, and understand what is it that are, you know, that the teams, and especially the translators, at the end of the day, they're the ones doing, like, without them, this industry doesn't exist. So that's kind of where we are. We had a couple of, you know, other experiences, personal experiences from translators, from QA and testers, and from kind of technical people. And, you know, we'll try to get the presentation with the videos to all of you somehow. But I guess I'd just like to kind of start maybe wrapping up with maybe some predictions or some closing thoughts from our panel, and then maybe from you guys, if that's all right. So, I mean, whichever, I don't know, I mean, Patricia, would you like to start with predictions or closing thoughts in terms of where are we heading, what do we want to leave our audience with today, in terms of, yeah, what's next?
Well, what's next for me is what we just mentioned, more automation based on artificial intelligence, whatever it means, which I'm still not clear. But an opportunity to rethink what we're doing, and get the most and enjoy what we're doing, because we may be able to stop doing repetitive, profitable tasks. And a lot of education to the customer, not only the customer, but the different roles in the customer. I'm very much into software localization and educating developers on IND and readiness. That's something that there's nothing there. So that's a lot of education. So, and by the way, colleges, they don't teach that. Okay, so we need to start thinking of how we change the way we teach at college to give them minimal, you know, move away to start giving them more education on how to do, you know, avoid repetitive tasks, because that's going to be taken by a machine, and go to the source, or going to the, you know, the two extremes, the customer and the translators. Okay. So that will be my predictions, if these are predictions from now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also kind of an action item for all of us, maybe to help shape up those roles, as in the training of those people who are going to be fulfilling those roles in the coming years. So certainly very, very, very interesting insights. Istvan, I don't know if you had, what you think
few thoughts, like,
might happen, yeah.
I think that there are two main things that are going to be addressed by AI. One is data, which is like detecting what piece of information is good or bad. So I'm talking about, let's say, PDF conversion. I'm talking about DTP internationalization, whatever a person can make an informed judgment of whether something is acceptable or not, which is a product. The other thing is the process. And the process is going to, I think, go towards change, which is something that I find quite interesting, because previously all the TMSs that I know and all these systems in there, they've been good with dealing with perfect data. But there is something which is called the localization maturity model, which is something that was telling that there is no perfect data, because there is a process of evolving for the customers. And I have never seen before those systems that would support this change. And I think that, first of all, probably first, the systems are going to change, and as a result, also the localization maturity model is going to change, because some of those things that the customers should know, the systems can fix. And then it's going to get like less stages. I think today it's 5 stages, probably it's going to go down to like 3 or whatever. So this is my long-term vision of how the industry can change.
Excellent, very good. And Patrick, from your side?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that in the era of in the field of DTP, a lot will happen. I haven't seen anything out there yet, and being leading that team as well and at Rotary, I would love to see more of that because there's a lot of repetitive and a lot of all this stuff is production driven. So I hope that evolves. We've seen and experiencing a lot in the interpretation field. I think it's going to the next 5 years. It's really, I think we're getting there. I think we're getting closer and closer with some very cool stuff in terms of interpretation, which I'm also very passionate about. And I think overall, and maybe machines will take over one day, right? Who knows? But I think humans still have the upper hand. There's this commercial by Samsung that has the song Que Sera Sera in the back that, it's very futuristic about, you might have seen that. But no matter what, it's about humans. It's about people. So I may be romantically optimistic to say that humans have the upper hand, and I think we'll continue, but because of that, we're going to continue creating great things that will help us be better if we want to, because it goes back to the human making that decision if you want something to be good or bad.
Excellent, thank you, absolutely. And I think, just before I forget, make sure that you guys fill in the survey in the app if you haven't done so. And I think Patrick's point is very relevant and definitely, in my opinion, the most important thing. We have created this, so we have a role to play and a responsibility to shape it up in a way that is going to help us. Our role, like this is all created by us. It's not the machines controlling what they do. So we do have that responsibility, and we have that opportunity through academia, as in shaping up how people are going to be trained and the roles that they're going to take in the future. Certainly, if we had to give you like a start guide or where to start, just be curious. Maybe this, hopefully for those who said unknown, when it was like the first word that comes to mind when you think of AI, hopefully after this session, you're a little bit more a little bit more about what it is and how it might help you. So be curious, be open, find a buddy, do a few courses like Istvan said, and plan carefully. Look at the problems that you're trying to solve. I think that's something that Patrick had mentioned earlier, that you're trying to solve for your organization. This is not a one-size-fits-all for definite, and what might work for one organization won't work for another. Plan carefully, bring your people on board, make sure. I think Olga said it, like, we don't know. There might be people who actually might be translators or post-editors, but they're super interested in like a data analyst job. So hey, make sure that you have those conversations.
Clearly, this discussion could go on, and I just have to say, there was a massive amount of prep done by the panel, so there's still lots of info to give.
Yeah.
We'll figure out how to get that.
Yeah, for definite.
And the videos. Please fill in the survey. That's how we know if we're doing a good, okay, great job. I just want to thank the panelists, so Patrick, Istvan, Patricia, and thank Maria for running the show, and to thank you for your input. And I think it's lunchtime, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.